After biking 1,000 miles across the Lowcountry, Dimitri Cherny is ready to take on Congressman Mark Sanford this November. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with him one-on-one. Dimitri.
Quintin.
It is so good to see you again.
Great to see you again.
I appreciate this.
Sure, I appreciate this.
Yes, anytime.
Yeah.
The last time I spoke with you for Quintin's Close-Ups was 6 months ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yes, indeed.
A lot has happened, a lot has changed, and I've learned an awful lot.
Speaking of which, you just came off a 1,000 bike mile event that took place. Let me ask you this. What is it like to be Dimitri Cherny right now?
Tired.
I noticed that.
Yeah, just for the audience at home, Quintin found me sleeping on the park bench here, waiting for him to arrive.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I just finished what I call my biking the Lowcountry tour. 80 days, 1,000 miles, about 130 miles on the water. So I was pulling my bike on wheels, or my boat on wheels, and I did about 130 miles on the water and then 870 miles on the land. And I stopped every day at grocery stores and Walmarts and drugstores and Lowe's and things like that. Just talk to people, and so I spoke with hundreds of people along the way, and really learned some things about the Lowcountry, about the people here, and really what I discovered is that we're not as divided as everybody thinks. Depending on what issues you're talking about, there are a lot of things that everybody wants, whether they're people who have previously always voted Republican or previously always voted Democrat. Everybody really wants a core number of things the same. So.
Speaking of which, and I want to get back to the bike ride just a moment.
Sure.
But you talk about issues. Let's talk about a couple of. So describe to me the following one word: the 9/11 bill.
The 9/11 bill. I understand the big legal ramifications that might create for America. I mean, if we can start suing foreign countries for actions that their citizens or their governments took, couldn't foreign countries sue America? And America is not exactly seen as the beneficent kingdom that we think it is from the rest of the world. So I think the Congress, in overriding the veto, made a big mistake on that.
Speaking of which, the government shutdown being averted.
I think that's a good thing, and the whole thing about government shutdowns is just ridiculous. I think we should be working towards just a budget and a funding mechanism that doesn't have to be voted on all the time. It just happens all the time. So.
Yeah, speaking of which, the Charleston Harbor deepening.
That's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? I mean, if the technology changes, so bigger ships are coming through, then our harbor and our port should be able to accommodate the bigger ships.
Keith Scott.
Another tragedy. And they just keep on continuing, as my friend Thomas Dixon says. The hits just keep on coming, and it seems as if maybe America is getting to the point now where we are at least having the discussion about racial disparities here in America and institutional racism. But that just makes it clear that it's continuing.
Terrence Crutcher. Oh, that was the guy who was involved with the police shooting in Tulsa. And he ultimately was
yes,
killed.
of course, yeah. Well, the same thing, exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, let me go back to the bike ride, because you said you visited a lot of grocery stores and Lowe's and Walmarts, and you mentioned a little bit about what you heard from folks. But what else are they telling you in your mind?
Well, the question I asked people was, what one or two things could the federal government do to make your life better? And the answers were all pretty uniform from almost everybody. And again, it didn't really matter whether people can consider themselves conservatives or liberals. They all came back and said, well, the number one thing the federal government could do to make my life better would be fix the healthcare system that we have right now. Make it so that, number one, it's not so expensive, and number two, I will never go bankrupt if I get catastrophically ill. So that was the number one thing that nearly everybody, I'd say 95, 98% of the people I talked to, that was their biggest concern. The second concern was education, the educational system that we have. For young parents, it was apparently now, I didn't know, I haven't been a parent in a long time, but kids in kindergarten are now learning what you probably learned in first grade,
Right.
you know, and what I probably learned in second grade. And so kids that are going into kindergarten that are not prepared with preschool are behind immediately. And so pre-K, preschool is not paid for by public schools. It's not part of the public school system. A lot of young parents want it to be, because right now preschool is expensive, and there are, you know, as you know, an awful lot of us out here. Some say 75% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And so where do you, as a young couple, come up with the money to pay for preschool also inside of your tight budget? So that's one part of education. The other part, of course, is people that are just getting out of college,
Right.
have their big college debts.
Yeah.
And it's not even just people getting out of college, it's people that got out of college 20 years ago that still have big college
Right.
debts out there, because nobody's been able to find a job that can pay enough to pay off their college debts in a reasonable amount of time.
Oh.
Not nobody, but most of us.
Yeah.
And then the third thing about education is, you know, education right now is zip code dependent. The quality of the education is zip code dependent. And in our mobile society that we have today, that's just ridiculous. We have kids coming in from, what do they say, 44 Ohioans a day are coming into Charleston. It's not, they're all
Right,
from
right.
Ohio, but imagine the kids coming in from some other school system somewhere else, being transferred into the schools here, and finding that in their same grade level, they're learning completely different things, or they're way behind probably here compared to where they were in some other school
Right.
system. We shouldn't have that. We should make it so that schools across the United States are uniform in what they're learning, and all American kids have you know, common set of things that they have to know at certain times during their years. And it shouldn't be dependent on zip codes. I mean, right now, funding for schools is all zip code dependent. I think it's time we finally recognize that Americans are much more mobile, and schools have to be the same high quality wherever they are in the United States.
Let me go down the street to the former Bilo, which is located at Meeting and Columbus Streets in
Okay,
downtown
yeah.
Charleston. As you know, that's no longer in existence because the store closed because of lack of business. When you think of that, Cherny, where are you emotionally?
Well, emotionally, it's a little sad for the people that were there. It wasn't a place I frequented very often,
Okay.
but it certainly was you know, good for the people in the area there. That's a weird mix between private industry and public requirements, and just having things like that. We need public services to be there for people, but because public services or grocery stores are a private business,
Right.
how can we demand that this private business becomes a public service in these areas? I don't know how you deal with that. Some sort of incentive programs. I really don't know. It's too bad, but I don't know how you would solve that problem.
Let me turn back to politics. You know, I was looking at CNN this morning, and then, you know, their ticker basically says 39 days out before the election.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going up against Congressman Mark Sanford. And I saw a latest poll that basically says that you and him are statistically tied.
Yes.
36%?
Yeah, both of us. Yeah.
What does that tell you?
It tells me, well, it could be two things. It could be that my biking the Lowcountry has been pretty successful, because if you look at all of the previous estimates for the 1st Congressional District,
Right.
it shows that it should be Republican heavy by 11 points. And so this is showing that it's not Republican heavy at all. It's completely even between Democrats and Republicans, which is either, again, my bike in the Lowcountry has been extremely successful in changing people's opinions, or it may be that those 44 people from Ohio that are coming in every day are more and more progressive, and it's making the whole area more and more progressive. So, but I think things are just changing here in the Lowcountry a lot.
And how did biking the Lowcountry train change you?
It made me a lot leaner than I was. I got a great tan. I'm in fabulous cardiovascular condition. I haven't been in this good shape since I was probably 25 or something, so that's kind of nice. But mostly it gave me a lot of empathy for what so many people are going through out there, just struggling on a day-to-day basis. I mean, there are a number of people in the 1st Congressional District that are doing very well. I mean, this is a retirement area for people that have done pretty well
Right.
from up north. But there is just as many people or more in the service industry servicing all of the retired or wealthy people that are not doing so well. And that's where my concern lies, with everybody that just is kind of scraping by right now, struggling, making do with what they have and living paycheck to paycheck.
I've known you for, I guess, what, a year or two now?
About a year, yeah.
And I understand your story. You told me your story about how you were homeless and whatnot, and how you actually overcame that, and how successful you are right now. But for those people who don't know Dimitri Cherny, can you describe you?
Me, I'm kind of a pretty typical American story from what I've heard from other people that have been through similar stories. You know, when you're younger, you always think you're going to be on this nice, smooth career path to the top, and you get to retirement. And that may have been true for a lot of people back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, but it just isn't true for people today. So that's why I think my story is pretty typical. And it's had its ups and downs, and it had a real good run of up there for a while, and then it had a short run of down, and now I've kind of I found my path. I think this is where I need to be, and it seems like the more I'm concerned about making things better for other people, the easier my life becomes. It's like the path just kind of opens up in front of me. So I'm really enjoying this life right now. Having a good time.
Let me go back to my newspaper roots. I worked at the Post and Courier. I know all about headlines and deadlines and whatnot, bylines. Let me take you to November 9th. What do you want the headline in the Post and Courier, the state newspaper, or even political to be?
Well, Cherny wins. And I think if I do win, knock on wood, it's going to turn the election system of America upside down. Because what I will have done is shown that people power is stronger than just raising millions of dollars. Because I am not raising millions of dollars, I'm raising thousands of dollars, and I made a conscious effort to go out and speak with people to get votes, rather than to have ads on television or other places to get votes, to actually meet with people. So I think what it will do at the least is encourage a whole new generation of people to get involved in politics and get involved in just their government, and get involved in voting, thinking that, you know what, maybe we do have an opportunity to take our country back from the 1%, the business interests, who really are ruling things now. So I'm hopeful that that's what's going to happen on November 9th, that people will be reinvigorated, that maybe it's not too late for America, that we should and we can have a country that's for us.
Okay. Well, Dimitri Cherny, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thanks, Quintin.
Thank you.